Hi everyone, welcome back to Pages of the Globe. Today we're going to be reading Janus by Ann Beattie. Before we start reading, I'm going to share you around 10 facts about the author. Born in Washington, D.C., Ann Beattie is an American novelist and short story writer. She was born in 1947, by the way. Her work first appeared in The New Yorker in 1974 when she was 26. She's received an award for excellence from the American Academy and Institute of Arts and Letters, and she's received an award for the PEN Malamud Award for Excellence in the Short Story Form. Ann Beattie has also been included in 4 O. Henry collections, in John Updike's The Best American Short Stories of the Century, and in Jennifer Egan's The Best American Short Stories 2014. So not only has she been included in many awards and award collections, she's also been included in many very prestigious short story collections. In fact, the story we're going to be reading today, Janus, is from John Updike's The Best American Short Stories of the Century. She holds an undergraduate degree from American University and a master's degree from the University of Connecticut. In 1976, she published her first book of short stories, Distortions, and her first novel, Chilly Scenes of Winter. Her first novel, Chilly Scenes of Winter, which was published again in 1976, was actually adapted as a film alternatively titled Chilly Scenes of Winter or Head Over Heels, 1979. The first version was not well received, but in its re-release in 1982, it was very successful, and now it's considered a classic. She also gained attention in the early 1970s with short stories published in the Western Humanities Review, Ninth Letter, The Atlantic Monthly, and again, The New Yorker. In 2005, she was selected as the winner of the RIA Award for Short Story, in recognition of her outstanding achievement in that genre. Janus, the story we will be reading today, was published in The New Yorker again in 1985. Now, before we start reading, I do want to explain to you a little bit about the story. Now, if you don't know who Janus is the Roman god of beginnings, gates, transitions, times, duality, doorways, passages, frames, and endings. So he's the god of a lot of things. But he's normally depicted with 2 heads, which is basically meaning that he's kind of 2-headed, which is Andrea's problem. See, Janus is about this bull that she has, and she is a real estate agent, and to her, the bull is the reason why she sells so many houses. So she thinks that her success as a real estate agent is because when she puts the bull in houses which she's trying to sell, people tend to buy that house more. Now, we soon realize that her old lover has given her that bull, and now she has attributed her love for him to the bull. She's two-faced because she wants to be with her lover, but she's still living with her husband. Now, I don't want to tell you too many things about the story, so let's get reading. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and if you want, comment down below what story you would like to listen with me next, and I'll also give you the analysis. Janus by Ann Beattie. The bowl was perfect. Perhaps it was not what you'd select if you faced a shelf of bowls, and not the sort of thing that would inevitably attract a lot of attentions at a craft fair. Yet it had real presence. It was as predictably admired as a mutt who has no reason to suspect he might be funny. Just such a dog, in fact, was brought out and in along with the bowl. Andrea was a real estate agent, and when she thought that some prospective buyers might be dog lovers, she would drop off her dog at the same time she placed the bowl in the house that was up for sale. She would put a dish of water in the kitchen for Mondo, take his squeaking plastic frog out from her purse and drop it on the floor. He would pounce delightedly, just as he did every day at home, batting around his favorite toy. The bowl usually sat on a coffee table, though recently she had displayed it on top of a pine blanket chest on a lacquered table. It was once placed on a cherry table beneath a Bonnard still life, where it held its own. Everyone who has purchased a house or has wanted to sell a house must be familiar with some of the tricks used to convince a buyer that the house is quite special. A fire in the fireplace in early evening, jonquils in a pitcher on the kitchen counter, where no one would ordinarily have space to put flowers, perhaps a slight aroma of spring made by a drop of scent vaporizing from a lamp bulb. The wonderful thing about the bowl, Andrea thought, was that it was both subtle and noticeable, a paradox of a bowl. Its glaze was the color of cream and seemed to glow no matter what light it was placed in. There were a few bits of colors in it, tiny geometric flashes, and some of these were tinged with flecks of silver. They were as mysterious as cells seen under a microscope, and it was difficult not to study them, because they shimmered, flashing for a split second, and then resumed their shape. Something about the colors and their random placement suggested motion. People who liked country furniture always commented on the bowl, but then it turned out that people who felt comfortable with Biedermeier loved it just as much. But the bowl was not at all ostentatious, or even so noticeable that anyone would suspect that it had been put in place deliberately. They might notice the height of the ceiling on first entering a room, and only when their eye moved down from that or away from the refraction of sunlight on a pale wall would they see the bowl. Then they would go immediately to it and comment. Yet they always faltered when they tried to say something. Perhaps it was because they were in the house for a serious reason, not to notice some object. Once, Andrea got a call from a woman who had not put in an offer on a house she had shown her. "That bowl," she said. "Would it be possible to find out where the owners had bought that beautiful bowl?" Andrea pretended she did not know what the woman was referring to. A bowl? Somewhere in the house? Oh, on a table under the window. Yes, she would ask, of course. She let a couple days pass, then called back to say that the bowl had been a present and the people did not know where it had been purchased. When the bowl was not being taken from house to house, it sat on Andrea's coffee table at home. It was large enough so that it didn't seem fragile or particularly vulnerable if anyone sideswiped the table, or Mondo blundered it at
फिर से पूरा करें. Mondo blundered into it at play.
It was large enough so that it didn't.
रुको फिर से fragile होता है शायद.
It was large enough so that it didn't seem fragile or particularly vulnerable if anyone sideswiped the table or Mondo blundered into it at play. She had asked her husband to please not drop his house key in it. It was meant to be empty. When her husband first noticed the bowl, he had peered into it and smiled briefly. He had always urged her to buy things she liked. In the recent years, both of them had acquired many things to make up for all the lean years when they were graduate students. But now they had been comfortable for quite a while. The pleasure of new possessions dwindled. The husband had pronounced the bowl pretty, and he had turned away without picking it up to examine it. He had no more interest in the bowl than she had in his new Lecia. She was sure the bowl had brought her luck. Bids were often put on houses when she had displayed the bowl. Sometimes the owner, who were always asked to be away or step outside when the house was being shown, didn't even know that the bowl had been in their house. Once, she could not imagine how, She had left it behind, and then she was so afraid that something might have happened to it that she rushed back to the house and sighed with relief when the woman owner opened the door. The bowl, Andrea explained, she had purchased a bowl and set it on the chest for safekeeping while she toured the house with prospective buyers. And she felt like rushing past the frowning woman and seizing her bowl. The owner stepped aside, and it was only when Andrea ran to the chest and the lady glanced at her a little strangely. In the few seconds before Andrea picked up the bowl, she realized the owner must have just seen that it had been perfectly placed, that the sunlight struck the bluer part of it. Her picture had been moved to the far side of the chest, and the bowl had predominated. All the way home, Andrea wondered how she could have left the bowl behind. It was like leaving a friend at an outing, just walking off. Sometimes there were stories in the paper about families forgetting a child somewhere and driving to the next city. Andrea had barely gone a mile down the road before she remembered. In time, she dreamed of the bowl. Twice in waking dream, early in the morning, between sleep and last nap before rising. She had a clear vision of it. It came into sharp focus and startled her for a moment. The same bowl she had looked every day. She had a very profitable year selling real estate. Word spread, and she had more clients than she felt comfortable with. She had the foolish thought that if only the bowl was an animate object, she could thank it. There were times when she wanted to talk to her husband about the bowl. He was a stockbroker and sometimes told people that he was fortunate to be married to a woman who had such fine aesthetic sense that could also function in the real world. They were a lot alike, really. They had agreed on that. They were both quiet people, reflective, slow to make value judgments, but almost intractable once they had come to a conclusion. They both liked details, but while ironies attracted her, he was more impatient and dismissive when matters became many-sided or unclear. But they both knew this. It was the kind of thing they could talk about when they were alone in a car together, coming home from a party or after a weekend with friends. But she never talked to him about the bowl. When they were at dinner exchanging their news of the day, or while they lay in bed at night listening to the stereo and murmuring sleepy disconnections, she was often tempted to come right out and say that she thought the bowl in the living room, the cream-colored bowl, was responsible for her success. But she didn't say it. She couldn't begin to explain it. Sometimes in the morning she would look at him and feel guilty that she had such a constant secret. Could it be that she had a deeper connection with the bowl? A relationship of some kind? She corrected her thinking. How could she imagine such a thing when she was a human being and it was a bowl? It was ridiculous. Just think of how people lived together and loved each other. But was that always so clear? Always a relationship? She was confused by these thoughts, but they remained in her mind. There was something within her now, something real, something she had never talked about. The bowl was a mystery, even to her. It was frustrating because her involvement with the bowl contained a steady sense of unrequited good fortune. It would have been easier to respond if some sort of demand were made in return. But that only happened in fairy tales. The bowl was just a bowl. She did not believe that for 1 second. What she believed was that it was something she loved. In the past, she had sometimes talked to her husband about a new property she was about to buy or sell, confiding some clever strategy she had devised to persuade owners who seemed ready to sell. Now she stopped doing that, for all her strategies involved the bowl. She became more deliberate with the bowl and more possessive. She put it in houses only when no one was there, and removed it when she left the house. Instead of just moving a pitcher or a dish, she would remove all the other objects from a table. She had to force herself to handle them carefully because she did not really care about them. She just wanted them out of her sight. She wondered how the situation would end. As with a lover, there was no exact scenario of how matters would come to a close. Anxieties became the operative force. It would be irrelevant if the lover rushed into someone else's arms or wrote her a note and departed to another city. The horror was the possibility of the disappearance. That was what mattered. She would get up at night and look at the bowl. It never occurred to her that she might break it. She washed and dried it without anxiety, and she moved it often from the coffee table to a mahogany corner table or wherever without fearing an accident. It was clear that she would not be the one who would do anything to the bowl. The bowl was only handled by her, set safely on one surface or another. It was not very likely that anyone would break it. A bowl was a poor conductor of electricity. It would not be hit by lightning, yet the idea of damage persisted. She did not think beyond that, to what her life would be without the bowl. She only continued to fear that some accident would happen. Why not, in a world where people set plants where they did not belong, so that visitors touring a house would be fooled into thinking that dark corners got sunlight? A world full of tricks? She had first seen the bowl several years earlier at a crafts fair she had visited half in secret with her lover. He had urged her to buy the bowl. She didn't need any more things, she told him, but she had been drawn to the bowl, and they had lingered near it. Then she went on to the next booth, and he came up behind her, tapping the rim against her shoulder. As she ran her fingers over a wood carving, "You're still insisting that I buy that?" she said. "No," he said. "I bought it for you." He had bought her other things as well, things she'd liked more at first. The child's ebony and turquoise ring that fitted her little finger, the wooden box, long and thin, beautifully dovetailed, that she used to hold paper clips. The soft gray sweater with a pouch pocket. It was his idea that when he could not be there to hold her hand, she could hold her own. But in time, she became more attracted to the bowl than to any of his other presents. She tried to talk herself out of it. She owned other things that were more striking or valuable. It wasn't an object whose beauty jumped out at you. A lot of people must have passed it before the two of them had saw it that day. Her lover had said that she was always too slow to know what she really loved. Why continue with her life the way it was? Why be two-faced, he asked her. He had made the first move toward her. When she would not decide in his favor, would not change her life, and come to him, he asked her what made her think that she could have it both ways. And then he made the last move and left. It was a decision meant to break her will, to shatter her intransigent ideas about honoring previous commitments. Time passed. Alone in the living room at night, she often looked at the bowl sitting on the table, still and safe, unilluminated. In its way, the bowl was perfect. The world cut in half, deep and smoothly empty. Near the rim, even in the dim light, the eye moved toward one small flash of blue, a vanishing point on the horizon.